First night, got the engine back, cleaned out the engine bay. Engine bay looks pretty nice. Got the new CDI and the new electrical box ready to go. Got the new engine, just arrived, packaged in expanded blow molded foam. There she is. Same case. He says he welded it. Oh, I can see the weld right there. Sure enough. Yep. PTO rod. When it locked up, it must have hit the bottom or pushed it out there on the bottom of the case. This is the PTO end. This is the cylinder that launched. But yeah, it's still got some of the wash on it and whatnot. They sealed it back up. Got the pistons in there. Look like they're in decent shape. Looks like there's a scuff on one of the skirts right there. This skirt not looking too bad. You can see the cross hatch in there. That's pretty good. But what I don't see is the coating on the pistons. I thought he used premium parts. The skirt on that piston's a little scratched up too. I guess he reused the pistons, I would imagine. Had to replace at least one. I thought this would be a new piston kit. Alright, he left the flywheel loose to put the new starter drive in. So I guess I gotta tighten that down to torque spec and put some Loctite on it to make sure it doesn't back out. Make sure this is on the keyway so it's timed properly. But that's it. ZXi 1100 ready to go back in and ready to go back on the water. Now we got the Kawasaki pump kit. I'm going to redo the pump and the pump bearings. Grind and balance the impeller and put it all back together. And this is, of course, the assembly gasket kit, which to me kind of looks, I don't know, it's all impregnated, so it looks like good to go. Main thing is the oil block off. I asked him for an oil pump block off plate, and so far have not located it in the packaging, but then again I haven't pulled the engine out. Hopefully it's underneath. All the rest of this stuff was on top. Here's the new starter drive. And this was good. This was a good call because the other one was hanging up. This is supposed to come out and retract real nice. Well, the other one would come out and every once in a while get caught. And it would lock into place and wouldn't retract. Matter of fact, here it is. Oh, see? It's supposed to retract. So that could have meant that the starter had been engaged, or at least this was spinning backwards a lot of time when the engine was running. Still hasn't fallen back into place. There, gotta use gravity. That's terrible. So that was a good call. I'm glad he made me aware of that. Yeah, look at that sucker. This will not retract in the horizontal position that it has to be in to work, but it will retract if it's turned perpendicular. That's crazy. Good call. I'm glad I didn't have to go through replacing this after the fact. Alright, so first thing is to get this pump off. It's been sitting a little bit, and you can see it's got a couple of webs in it even. It's been a year and a half, almost 2 seasons since I've had this thing out on the water, contemplating what to do with it. And I looked around, and for the money you just can't beat this kind of a performance machine. These ZXI 1100s, when they're running all 3 cylinders tough, they're hard to beat by even the 4-stroke supercharged. I have a buddy of mine that's got a supercharged Yamaha, and he was only beating me by a couple of miles an hour when I first bought this. But that's another thing, this boat is in pretty good condition. The guy that had it kept it in pretty good condition, but I have no idea how many hours were on this thing. And I always kept the maintenance up on it perfect. There were no oiling issues. The oil pump was still working. There was oil getting in all the cylinders. What ended up happening was the bottom end went bad on it. And the number 3 bottom end bearing basically exploded, disintegrated. Pieces went flying everywhere into that cylinder, got it up into the piston, beat the hell out of the head, beat the hell out of the piston, and apparently it cracked the case as it whipped around. When I took it apart, I got some really good pictures of all the destruction that happened in that engine before I sent it off, so we'll add that in the slideshow with this. But that's it. We're gonna take this pump off, and we'll show you what it looks like when we get it off there. Okay, here we are. So we got the drive shaft put back in, got the jet pump built last night, took the oil tank out, and as you can see in the bottom here, it was all nice and clean before. What I noticed was that the plug I put in the oil tank hose basically was leaking, and it leaked back into the back of the craft, so I basically lowered the front end of the craft down as much as I could on the jack and let the oil flow forward so I can clean the rest of that little residue out of there. But took the oil tank out, a lot more room back there. Now it doesn't seem so cramped, be a little more accessible, which leaves the said, a lot of room inside there now. That tank took up that whole space. And we're going to get ready to put the engine back in. I noticed something really funny here. The guy that had this before me obviously tightened the hose on this behind where the hose was mounted. The first time I took this craft out, I was having a great old time. I was out by the dam. Next thing I know, the craft started feeling weird and started running weird. So I took back off to shore, got almost to the shore when it completely crapped out on me. So got off the craft, pulled it back into shore, opened it up, and this entire compartment was full of water, all the way up to the top of the box here. And at the time, these connectors for the box and the ones back here, a couple of them were broken. So that allowed the entire box to fill up with water. And what had happened, I guess, he had tried to drain the thing, and he had tightened that down behind the actual port. Thought he had it tightened, I'm sure, but that popped off on me, and it filled this entire thing with water. I had no idea. So got it home, took it out, the box and all the electronics inside of it were pretty much trashed. So, like I said, we got a new box, new CDI unit, made sure that the connectors on the box are nice and rigid, make sure that they're watertight so that if the water does get back into the cavity again, it doesn't swamp the box. So, that was the first mishap. The second mishap was when the battery back here broke the straps, and if you see, the battery is very close to the electrical box, and the battery strap broke and the battery fell into the box and fried the unit again. And so yes, this has been definitely a learning curve, but a comedy of errors at the same time. But this boat is just incredible. When it runs at its peak, you just can't beat it. So that's why it's been a labor of love, let's put it that way. But once you get invested in one of these things, it's just hard to become divested. Alright, so here's the bin, or the box full of parts. Most of this is exhaust. Of course, you got the front cover here. Got the reeds. I checked the reeds. Of course, I'm going to clean them up. This is the one from number 3. You can see all the metal and debris still in the reed itself. Clean them up real good. Reinstall them. The cages are good. The reeds are good. There was no problem with that. At first I thought maybe I sucked a reed cage, maybe a piece of metal or something like that, or maybe a piece of reed itself. It damaged the top of that piston, but once I got back down in it and found the bottom end was toast, figured out why. So these are all the little odds and ends, parts and pieces. Of course, I'm going to clean them up a little bit before I throw them back on. The carbs and the carb set. Luckily, we don't have the CV carbs. We got the really nice Cayenne triple carbs. They have the actual butterflies in them. These carbs are running excellent. There's not a problem with these. I just got to block off the oil jets since we're going to run premix. There's the studs and bolts. Luckily, he gave me a few extra studs and bolts when he sent the motor back, just in case, and I need that for sure because I had an intake stud. And I don't know if he drilled it and got it out, but somehow he got that out. It must have heated it. But one of the intake studs broke off when I was trying to take it out, and so I'm glad he sent the stud kit. There's only 2 of those intake studs, but I only needed 1, which is great. All the other studs came out all right. Had to double nut them and take them out, but they worked all right. Again, here's the box full of parts. Exhaust, the reeds, the reed cages. He sent me all new gaskets, so I don't have to worry about that. And the intake and exhaust side, like I said, the reeds are in beautiful shape. Really nice reeds. Except for this one, of course, like I said, has all that debris. You can see all the copper-looking metal flakes. That's from the rod itself. Here's the oil pump. Oil pump again, like you see, there's oil in all those lines all the way up. Never had any oil problems with it. But since we're going with the new engine, figure might as well go with the premix. That way, we always know we're getting oil to the system. And yeah, we'll start putting it back together and we'll chronicle it along the way. There's the oil tank, and again you can see where it's leaking now on my driveway. So great. So I was up late last night, and as such I just became very engrossed in what I was doing. Basically took the jet pump apart and put it all back together without really chronicling or documenting what went on. So sorry about that, but the jet pump is in, all the bearings, all the seals. Interestingly, those 2 seals, they go in back to back. One goes in and seals from one direction, one seals from the other direction. What was interesting is when I did take this apart, I found water inside this bearing and between these seals. So it's a good thing we went ahead and did this. Now, this bearing, perfect. This bearing, perfect. I don't know when it was that it might have been done, but usually these pumps have to be done every so often. I'd imagine with the kind of hours and use this is, you had this done at least once, but worked really, really well. And I'm glad that I got the new ones in, but I'm also glad that these weren't on the ragged edge of failure. So, right on. Alright, so here's the intake manifold. Cleaned it up really nice. It's a little bit of crap still down in that little valley. I'll get that out. But the throats are really nice. You can see the coating is still on there real nice. Clean the port sides. Very good. Also, tried to clean up the exhaust. Looks like I got another fingerprint on there. Noticed a couple things with the exhaust. A couple of things, I should say. That must have been from some water damage earlier on in its life, because I drained and maintained this thing every winter. So that was surely fun. So I got that all fixed up, so that's ready to go back on. Instead of trying to clean some of this up, so when it goes back, at least it looks halfway decent. It won't look like a grease monkey put it back together. But there's the intake, there's the exhaust, there's the other pieces, and we'll clean those up a little as we go. First of all, the exhaust manifold, and then of course the crossover tube there, and then the plate. I don't know, I'm gonna have to pull out the engine all the way out of the box and see if he sent me my oil pump block off plate. I sure hope he did, because we're going premix with this thing, so I'm going to be taking that off before I put the cover back on. Alright, look at the other stuff when it's done. Okay, there's that number 3 reed cage. Very nice, cleaned it up, got all the debris out. Looked inside, blew all the reed valves open. There was a little piece of debris in there, so got that out, luckily. I'm going to do the same to the other ones, clean them up, blow through them, make sure there's nothing bouncing around. But they're in all good shape. This ski really was in great shape. I don't know why the bottom end would have failed like that, unless it's just everything else in the bottom. Probably the bottom end was the last thing to go. You know. Obviously this thing was well kept. Here's the other parts. Nice and shiny blue. Still haven't taken that fingerprint off, but that's alright. Intake, exhaust pieces. This engine is going to look sweet when it goes back together. Almost just like factory. Very nice. Okay, so got the green pieces cleaned up, got the spark arrestor, the cap, the arrestor itself, nice and clean, got all the screens nice and clean, all shiny, ready to go back together. Yes, sir. This is going to look really nice and be very, very sweet when it's done. Here's the front cover, has the wiring harness integrated, and again it has the 3 oiling lines coming off of it. As you can see, they're full. No signs of any oil bubbles. The oil pump was working fine. Yet again, like I said before, these things can give out at any time. So it's best just to run a premix. That way you know exactly what kind of lubrication you're getting at all times. And I'm hoping, again, he packed that block off plate in the kit. So we'll see when we get the engine out. Got the laptop here. We're basically looking up the different parts, looking up the assembly for the exhaust. What's nice is it shows you the bolts, shows you the torque specs for each one of them. Okay. I don't think I need the flash. Well, Well, that's about the sum total of the parts, except for the carbs, which are still in their box. And still waiting for my buddy to get here so we can pull the engine out. It's not something I want to muscle out of there myself. His tardiness has allowed me to really detail the crap out of all these parts though. Okay, so the engine's going back together. Got the starter in, got the front cover on, got the new Bendix, got the exhaust studs going in. Over here on this side, I got the intake studs going in. Just a little note, when you're putting the studs in, you're either double nutting it or using a stud tool, don't drop the studs down inside the bottom end. They're a pain in the ass to get them back out. This center stud over here, right here, had the motor laying kind of on its side in an upright position, so I could just sit here and put the studs in, and sure enough, Butterfingers dropped the stud with the two nuts all the way down inside the bottom end of number 2 cylinder. Well, luckily, the way the crank was positioned, it was just a straight drop and I could see it in there, but unfortunately with these, they're stainless steel, which means they're not magnetic. I couldn't use a magnet tool to get down there and get them out, so I had to just basically pray that if I turned it straight over and almost upside down, it would fall right back out the same channel it fell in, and it did. It finally popped out. But boy, I thought, oh man, worst case scenario, having to take the damn bottom case apart, and that was not gonna please me. So just of note, don't put the studs in with the engine cocked back this direction. As you can see, you get yourself into a lot of trouble dropping your foul hardware down in there. So I've got it sitting more forward leaning angle so that if anything falls, it falls to the floor. Alright, gonna put the intake manifold and the reeds and all that stuff, and we'll check back in. We got the intake manifold back on, the reed valves are installed, brand new gaskets, everything's torqued down. Getting ready to put the engine plate back on the bottom, and then we should be real close to getting her stabbed back in. I think it'll go in with the exhaust manifold, so I'm going to put the exhaust manifold on it, and then we're going to lift this thing in there. Or maybe not, depends. I'm thinking the exhaust manifold might add unnecessary weight to our having to strap it up and lift it in the boat. But there's the intakes, very nice, nicely done, ready for the carbs. Okay, there she is. She's got the belly pan back on. You want to remember when you put this thing on that the big notched edges go to the back, the small notched edges go to the front. 33 foot-pounds with red Loctite. You want to make sure you lock them down really good because this motor vibrates like crazy. What's that? What? Nikki, tell me about it. What's the matter, mister? You snuck up on me, didn't you? What? Yeah. Sounds like it. It's awful hot out here, isn't it? It's got to be 95, 98 degrees in the shade. But there she is, ready to go in. Next time you see it, it should be in that hole right there. Okay, there she is. She sat down in, got the motor mounts tightened in, red Loctite, 27 foot-pounds, ready to go. Righty, fish? Right on. Finally got some help. We loaded the engine in with the strap. Basically just put it on the ends of the head there, picked it up, Lifted it down into the ski, got it bolted in. So now we're going to hook up the electrical down there for the starter, hook up the exhaust, rerun the wire looms. Got to get some wire ties for those. Put the carbs back on. We're making progress. PTO looks really nice and straight. A little play in there. Just make sure it's not binding up on it. It's not bottomed down or anything. Alright, good to go. Okay, super clean, yes, absolutely. Got to keep things super clean. Well, it's coming along. Now it's getting nighttime. Got to use a little light to get in here. There it is. Engine's in. We got all the hoses hooked up. We got the exhaust and the exhaust manifolds locked in. All Loctite. All blue Loctite, non-permanent. Now we just got to concentrate on getting the carburetors on, fuel system hooked back up. Gonna have to block off the ports for the oil injection on the carbs, and go and fill up a can with some gas, put some premix in it. Run around 45 to 1, premix 43 to 1, something like that. Make it a little rich for the break-in period. Make sure everything gets nice and lubricated. I took a little squirt gun and put a little down in the cylinders, ran the cylinders up and down, the pistons up and down the cylinders. Put a little bit on the bottom end, make sure that the bottom end's properly lubricated for the break-in. And it's coming along. I'm gonna hook up this hose right here up here to the temperature sensor, which also feeds water out. Hook up the little bypass hose. There goes from the head into the exhaust, and then here's our little flush tee. Hooks right up to a hose. Garden hose is supposed to slip right over the top of it, and you start the engine up and throw a little water through it. Keep it cool. All right, there we are. Got the engine in, PTO's hooked up really nice, got the carbs on, got the spark arrestor box on. Just got to put that cap back on. Got the accelerator cable and the choke cable put in place. Can't see them now, but I blocked off the oil ports to the carburetors. Just need to put some plugs in it. And she's about ready to go. Put some pre-mix, some gas in this sucker, and fire her up. Not going to do it tonight, but probably first thing tomorrow morning. That looks more like it. And in this video, I didn't start with, okay, so it's back together. Or maybe I did. 1100 triple. She's ready to go. I got the fuel filter out right now. Gonna put a fuel filter in it first. I just got done sucking all the residual gas out of the tank, so that I'm sure that what goes in it is pre-mixed to the right specification. I must have taken out 2 to 3 gallons, and that's after I had drained the tank for storage. So it's a good thing I did that. Wouldn't want it running lean on oil during the break-in period. So excuse my mess. Pardon, still a little bit dirty. Scrub it up when I'm done. But we're gonna fire it up here in a little bit as soon as I get that fuel filter on here. Got to prime it up a little bit. I got a little hole there in the top where you can spray some spray in there. But I did take a oil can with some marine oil, 2-stroke oil, sprayed it down. Squirted it down in each one of the piston tops. Make sure there's plenty of lubrication in the tops and the cylinders and the walls. Then I took and squirted a few squirts on each one of the main bearings, in and around the bearings, around the side of the bearings. That way there's some pre-lubrication while we're doing the dry crank and trying to get it started. It's going to take, a couple of seconds for that fuel to get up into the carburetors. And so while we're doing that, throw a little bit of fogging oil down there as well, just make sure there's some lubrication. But we're gonna crank it over here in a few. I've cranked it over. It cranks over very nice. Sounds like it has great compression. Just haven't got any fuel up to it yet. Don't want to start it on regular fuel. Okay, time to crank it over.
No, it's right here.
Check for fuel coming from the fuel filter. You can already see it soaking it up. So we know that the pump is working good. Pull the choke now.
For more information on how you can adopt, visit adoptuskids.org. A public service announcement from the U.S. Department of Health and Human Services. Adopt U.S. Kids in the United Type 2 diabetes, 500,000 term life insurance is not everyone needs affordable term insurance regardless of Big Lou. Big Lou will find a term life policy for you even if you have type 2 diabetes, overweight, or high blood pressure. For affordable term life for you, call Big Lou at 800-480-46.
No papa.
No papa. Gas is on. Ignition's on.
Is there a kill switch on?
Wants to try to go up and down. Nope. That's it.
It's officially broken.
Not good.
Do you see anything?
No.
No spark?
Doesn't seem to be.
Oh, okay. Well, there's the mystery solved.
No, the reason why is not solved. This thing was running just fine when it took its ultimate dive. Alright, well, I had to take the flame arrestor off. It pumped up gas really good, so it's getting gas to the carbs. I look down here, now I'm getting some squirt. I don't know what was going on, but it needed more RPMs to pull the gas into the carbs and into the float bowls, but now they're all working. It starts up, it idles. I'm going to put the arrestor back on and then we'll show you how it runs. Don't want to run it like this. Got to also put the water hose on now. It's dark. And you can see I was freaking out because I have had problems with the CDI box, and I was thinking the center or the spark wasn't sparking again, but it turned out to be carburetor related. So yeah. Here's all the great stuff. I'm sitting here cleaning plugs. I'm sitting here spraying some different stuff down the throat, just trying to get it started. Starting spray. Only thing I can say, starting spray. Alright, so there it is. Getting ready here to do the first 10-minute sustained run. Try to help it get lubricated, broken in, fuel system and everything. Got the water hooked up. Starts right up, runs like a champ.
Water, don't want to starve it, but the water is mildly warm. You can tell when it gets warm. The big test is to check the pipe. The pipe is nice and cool to the touch, so we know we got plenty of water running through there. The only thing we don't want to do is overwhelm the cylinders and have water shoot back into the cylinder. So keep a nice trickle going. Coming out the drive. Not even warm yet. Industrial garden hose, it's got a brass fitting on it, but any one of these cheapy hoses, you're supposed to be able to just stick it on there, straight on there, and have it kind of hold on. But it's exactly the same size as the inside diameter of a typical garden hose.
Toys are finally ready for the lake. Kawasaki versus Kawasaki. Which one's funner? Well, I could tell you which one's funner. This one's great. For all those times you can't go to the lake, I can ride that every day. So, it's nice to have a slight variety. But ready to rock and roll. She is a runner, man. Let me tell you what. Put back together meticulously, and she is smoking, literally, with that premix. Running 36 to 1 to break it in. Eventually run down to 50 to 1, because that's what calls for in the manual. But yeah, let her run rich. Go through a couple sets of plugs. I don't care. Just want to make sure that this engine lasts as long as it possibly can. And we'll only do that if we treat her right. But boy, I can't wait. She's running on all 3 cylinders and running good. Yes, sir. Okay. See you at the lake. Alright, got the jet ski in the water. Alright. Ready for the maiden voyage. Check it out, how it runs.
Did they?
All three of them got thrown off.
Uh-oh.
They didn't look like they're happy.
No, I bet not.
Oh yeah. Duck it. That's what I'm talking about. And that's half throttle. Woohoo! Baby, she sings.